to the wall. Skeet, skeet. I can't get that out of my head. It's just too good. Too good. Should be. Can't you hear me knocking on the window? Did it work? My bones. Channel 69 News. Yeah, you like that? That's her. That's her moniker. Channel 69. Dumb idiot news. Because two double negatives in one sentence is a great way, an effective way to show your communications major. Yeah, I'm petty. I'm never gonna let that shit go. I'm just putting that. I'm fucking petty. I don't give a shit. Probably fucking watching with his weird ass, anyways. Lahu, Zahur, Zahur. Just remember the statement. Any dude that's in his like 50s and 60s that is occupied spending their time down talking on someone who's like half their age is probably a fucking loser. To the window, to the wall. On that note, we are here. We are live.
Yes, we are.
And in the year 2025, we shall thrive. Hello, everybody. How are we doing?
We are.
Happy fucking Sunday. It's does not feel like a Sunday. Honestly, since Thanksgiving, my day's been thrown the fuck off.
Yeah,
Um, I'm Hirsch, as always, joined alongside my host, Jimmy. Jimmy, how's it going?
I am doing well. I'm with you. I didn't even know today was Sunday. I thought it was like Friday or Thursday for some reason. But how are you?
I am chilling, a little sore, a little tired, but this weekend was an interesting one to take a small little hiatus from talking politics because a lot happened,
Yeah,
and I have been reminded time and time again. And if you go back in the previous episodes, you'll see I kind of called this. You know, I did my Babe Ruth moment. I looked out at the park, I pointed my shot, and I
yeah,
called it, which was the old Lennon quote: "There are decades in which weeks happen, and weeks in which decades happen." And we are kind of in the latter of that. We are currently experiencing uh, decades worth of historical events that are happening in what seems like only weeks.
yeah,
Obviously, this has been a project that has been drawn out and planned for a very long time, but it's coming to fruition, and it's happening really fast.
yeah.
Um, and so I think we're going to start off the show today just kind of speaking to that because right now I have noticed with a lot of people and myself for a brief moment included, I did have a reactionary moment of like, okay, why the fuck is all this happening now? But I had to, you know, take my breath, count to 10, and remind myself of exactly what's at play and what has been the end goal of the imperialist experiment that we've been seeing
Hmm.
throughout the years. And it's something that has been very much advertised. It's something that has been shown to us time and time and time again to be very much true. The global expansion is here. If you look back all the way to Ronald Reagan when he starts talking about New World Order, trying to organize you know, and this is scary for conservatives, but he was one of the people that came out and spoke about it in American politics, borderless politics,
Right.
one world currencies, right? And this is something
Yeah.
that is, you know, has been chipping away for quite some time, essentially, basically, since the starting and the collapsing of the Soviet Union,
Uh-huh.
and it is now accelerating, and that's for two different things. I think the power that Western imperialism holds is very much still real power. However, it is a power that is dying. It is a power that is failing to compete with other foreign entities. And the accelerated nature that we're seeing is a reflection not necessarily of a strong empire, but a weak one. And I think, if anything, that's almost a little bit more frightening. Because at the end of the day, I think it's safe to say people such as Jimmy or even myself, we know who the quote enemy is, right? We know who the bad guys are.
Mhm.
It's just it's hard to be able to prep yourself and slow down the brakes and not only make others aware, but fully understand why exactly who's bad, who's not. And so I think this video right here is a good little introduction because remember, this is a project that has been taking place for a very long time.
Mhm.
And I don't know, Jimmy, if there's anything you wanted to add before we started that, or
Yeah, I'm actually really excited to be able to go on this kind of journey with you and kind of hear your perspective of it, and how this new world order is coming to be. Because a lot of people, ever since George Bush, the first one, spoke about the borderless walls in the new world order. Um, a lot of people didn't believe it and they kind of just lived their life. But there was this really a very small sect of where I came from, the conspiracy theorists. We used to call this, satanic, and you're gonna get the mark of the beast on you to be. That's the only way you're gonna be able to eat, is because this world government currency. And if you don't believe in what they believe, then you're not going to get the mark, and you're not going to be able to go shopping and live. And like, this was all part of this underground conspiracy theories that we've been, like, a lot of us have been screaming for years, but a lot of people are like, no, this is never going to happen, this is never going to happen, to the point where I got to, oh, this is never going to happen because it hasn't yet and nobody's talking about it. And now, just within a short period of time, just the flood of these crazy conspiracies are literally coming to fruition in front of our very eyes, and it's becoming reality. And I'm kind of in a confused point right now, to where I don't know where I stand, because yeah, I've just been pulled both sides and I'm seeing it happen, but not wanting to believe it's actually happening, because I didn't think that it could be this bad. It's this whole thing is a lot. I told Taco this morning, information overload is what it feels like.
yeah. Well, it's overwhelming and it's specifically designed to feel that way. If you think about the way that power is maintained, it's through physical violence, intimidation, power struggle, class struggle, culture wars, etc. And it's stuff that we've been beaten over the head with for
Yeah.
our entire lives.
Yep.
Uh, but yeah, no, 100%. I think we are starting to see, like you had said, some of these conspiratorial um, thinking experiments or thought experiments uh, coming alive, and it is scary when you start thinking about just the major implications. Now, there might be some people who are listening, like, okay, you guys are being a little bit, fear mongering. It's
Yeah.
not that, I can only speak for myself. I'm not trying to fear monger. I'm just trying to put in perspective, um, to expect worse to come just off of historical analysis and understanding and taking people at their word for what their intentions are. So let's listen to this. This is from, excuse me, 2007, 2008. So we're basically about 7.5 years into the Afghanistan war, and probably like 6.5 years into Iraq. But
Okay.
yeah, this video should tell you everything you need to know about what to be expected.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me. And one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No, no." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al Qaeda?" He said, "No, no." He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq. He said, I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments. And he said, I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail. So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, are we still going to war with Iraq? And he said, oh, it's worse than that. He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, this is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
Well, obviously, we have seen that it took a little bit longer than 5 years. And again, that has a lot to do with the fact of what I was talking about earlier, which is ultimately the accelerated nature in which we're seeing happen is a bit of planning and years of building, but also the final grasp of a dying empire. And I think obviously Iran is one that is constantly being put in the United States news cycle. There's constant posturing that's getting made, manufacturer consent to make them, out to be the bad guys, right? They didn't follow through on the nuclear deal, even though Trump was the one who put a kibosh on it. They're sending missiles over to Israel, and by sending them not the way that we are, but like they're sending them to bomb Israel, which is, of course, a big no-no.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Iran is not obviously the only nation that is in the crosshairs of this expansion movement. I mean, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Romania, crucial areas that are either crucial for NATO power or for trade routes or for anything of that nature. And not only are the implications very bad for the people of the Middle East, but also we need to keep in mind that the conditions for the global south are only going to worsen alongside because we're going to see an even stricter monopoly control of the oil situation. And if that happens, then who's going to get punished from that? Not America, not France, not Germany, not any of those. You know who is going to get punished? Venezuela, Argentina, Chile, Honduras, Guam. I mean, the list goes on.
Yep.
So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind and remember. There's always the notion of people trying to say, oh, well, this doesn't directly affect me. It does. It does. One way or another, you can sit there and, plug your ears, close your eyes, la, 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 la. But at the end of the day, we live in a world that is specifically built on global trade, a global market. And when you have that happen, and especially a system that we live in the United States that is so dependent on trade, very much important what happens because that controls prices too. It's not just the president that dictates shit. But here in 2008, there was the Arab League summit that was held in Damascus. And Gaddafi is given a warning to other Arab officials, and watching it now is definitely eerie. Let's just see what the certain reaction from a Mr. Assad. Oh, hold on, let me go back for a second. I missed the first second. An entire Arab leadership was executed by hanging. Yet we sit on the sidelines. Why? Any one of you might be next, yes?
Mm-hmm.
And they laugh. There's laughter in the background. You might not be able to hear it, but there's laughter in the background. And here is the man who just had to flee his country laughing at the thought, oh, this couldn't be me. And this is a great point, too, because this motherfucker right here, the laughing like, oh, you guys are next. Like, you think it's just happening to me? You think I'm just too fucking stupid and I don't know what I'm doing? It's going to happen to you, too. And the same shit they're saying about me, they're going to say about you, which they are, by the way. Like, hey, I'm more of an ally to you than anything else. And this is a perfect fucking allegory for the average person.
Yeah.
Especially here in the United States. Everybody, whenever they hear about trans people getting their rights taken away and legislation, passed that is specifically targeting them. They think to themselves, oh, well, that doesn't affect me. Not my problem. They're not coming after me. When they think about legislation that comes after people of color, they don't think anything of it because they're not coming after me. They're not going to come after me. It's
Wow.
always somebody else. It's never, nobody ever thinks it's going to happen to them. It's the same way that things happened during World War II. You think all those fucking Germans, everybody that lived in Belgium, all the people who lived in Poland, you think all them motherfuckers thought that that shit was going to happen to them?
No.
They said, oh no, if we just do what we're supposed to do, if we just, put our fucking head down and put our fucking eyes on the grindstone, no one's going to fuck with us because we're not fucking with them. Guess what? They ended up getting fucked with. And
God.
it's one of the main reasons, right? From the Holocaust, they always say, first they came from the communists, but I did not do anything because I'm not a communist. Then they came for the gay people and the trans people. I didn't do anything because I wasn't gay or trans. Then they started coming for the Romani people. I wasn't Romani, so I didn't do anything. Then they started coming after the Africans, and then they started coming after the Muslims, the Arabs. I didn't do anything because I was them. And then they came for me, and I had no one to fucking defend me. And that's the whole reason why we see this heightened culture war bullshit. And that's exactly one of the many reasons why we do our stream, is just to talk so people can see, as an example, that there are normal people out there and there are important conversations to be had. But a lot of times the conversations involve having to not necessarily force, but have people who think that human rights violations are fine, or who have like the libertarian perspective of healthcare. Oh, well, if you get sick, if you can afford to get sick, you can afford to get healthy. It's not my problem. Like, those motherfuckers, they need to start listening. We've been hearing them talk. Their ideas have been winning. Their ideas have been at the forefront of American fucking policy since its inception. We've had to listen to them, but yet they still always try to pearl clutch and be like, oh, we need to have more conversations. We need to have uncomfortable conversations. And then you start talking about race, and they're like, ah, la, la, la. I don't know, dude. That's kind of fucked up. We can't talk about that right now. Let's talk about something else. You start talking about gender. Same fucking thing. They get uncomfortable. They start getting mad. They don't want to fucking talk about it. So exactly how the fuck are we supposed to have these conversations? Again, a lot of the change that is needed to take place comes from within, as corny as that sounds. And I hate saying that because I hate the idea of individual change, but it is crucial to the overall end goal. And make no mistake about it, me saying this isn't a way of being like, oh, well, this is activism or anything. No, we're just fucking Twitch streamers who are ultimately on a journey trying to figure out how to fucking process and cope with the current crisis that we face in this country every single fucking day. And we're trying to find other people that are doing the same thing, who want to have those uncomfortable conversations, but most importantly, who also want to listen. And again, you could be like this guy. A lot of you motherfuckers that, have this idea, you can be like him because he's laughing. A lot of you are just like he was, saying, oh, well, you know what? That shit's never going to happen to me. I'm never going to get overthrown by the United States government. I'm never going to get overthrown by NATO forces. I'm never going to get, imprisoned for just my beliefs.
Such a mic drop.
2 seconds, I'm going to let it play. Sorry.
America fought along Saddam Hussein. He was their friend. Cheney was a friend of Saddam. Rumsfeld, U.S. Secretary, at the time Iraq was destroyed, was a close friend of Saddam. Untimely, they sold him out and hanged him. You're friends of America. Let's say we are not you. But one of these days, America may hang us. An entire Arab leadership was executed by hanging, yet we sit on the sidelines. Why?
It had repeated. This is just a repeat. Sorry, my brother was I thought we were going to talk about Trump tonight, and I was going to have my brother come on and talk about Kash Patel, because there's a lot of QAnon excitement about that. So tomorrow, tomorrow when we do our show talking about the Trump interview and some of the cabinet picks, My brother is going to be hopping on with us to talk about some of the QAnon stuff involved in the Trump presidency, specifically Kash Patel, because he has a lot of good information about Kash Patel. We were talking about it earlier. So,
Okay.
sorry. Anywho's like I was saying on that little tangent, and sorry for going on that tangent. People need to realize, like, you can keep trying to kid yourself and be like, this isn't my problem. It's not gonna happen to me. Well, let's see. You can
Yeah.
be like him. Because guess what? This motherfucker thought the same exact thing. He thought he was untouchable. Dude, he thought he was untouchable. You know why? Because the Pentagon was fucking sending funding and training to people that were part of his army, his Royal Army, which was also getting trained and funded and armed by Russia. So he had two fucking superpowers that were basically like, yeah, we're gonna, and then at the same time, because we have to point this out because this is how convoluted of a situation it is. Meanwhile, while he's getting support from the United States government via the Pentagon, the CIA is backdooring the State Department and training the same rebels that ended up taking over these past few days.
Yep.
So it's a whirlwind. And again, whether it be here in Syria, whether it be in Ukraine, these are going to be the modern issues that we are going to face. In the old world, pre 2000, 9/11, most of the issues could always be easily digested. And what I mean by that is that you could say, okay, well, there's this dictator that's in the Philippines that is committing genocide and etc. Right, and that would be something that could actually be somewhat like worked on through resolution, etc. And then obviously in the United States or throughout the world, you would have people would say, oh, okay, well, like this guy is doing what he's doing in the Philippines because it's actually good. It's the will of the people and they support it. We don't need to get interfered with it. And then there was the other side where it's like, yeah, we just support it. And there was only really like the two factions that are going at each other, right? Like communists and fascists. That was the old world. Where now there are so many different sects, SECTS, for those who thought I said sex. But there are so many different versions of those ideologies that it's all kind of like meshed together, and there are conflicting ideologies within some of these groups that represent those ideologies. And part of it is something that I've talked about before with what Vladimir Putin does with propaganda in Russia, right? Like, instead of allowing journalists to be able to dig up stuff about his money connections and this, he just puts money into everything, whether it be anti-Putin groups, whether it be pro-socialist groups, pro-communist groups, pro-capitalist groups. He just puts money and support everywhere because then either side can use it as their propaganda. And ultimately, nobody fucking really knows what is true, what's not.
Yeah.
And that's going to be what we see in every single global fucking conflict from here on out. Because right now, nationalists are trying to sell what's going on in Syria as bad because think about the Christians. Assad was the only guy that's going to protect the Christians. What about the white Christians in Syria? That's their spin, right? That's why they're saying this is bad. And this is why some people on the left might see somebody they know who is a fucking nationalist, who is a Nazi, who is saying that what's happening is bad and be like, wait a minute, am I on the right side? Am I thinking correctly? Because the person that I disagree with on a lot of worldviews is agreeing that this is bad.
Yep.
Like, what the fuck? And so you have that. And then you have the United States that's like, oh, this is bad because, or this is good because, there was a revolution and it was the people's will. And this is great. So again, we are looking at uh, the modern global conflicts and how it's not going to necessarily be easy to say, well, this guy's good, this guy's bad. And that's why I hate the whole good bad argument anyways, right? Like a couple streams ago, we were talking about China in comparison to the US, which is something that I even admitted at the time. Like, yes, in comparison to the United States, China is good. But if you're trying to tell me that China good, like overall, then I'm going to tell you you're full of fucking shit, because China commits just as many human rights violations as any other country.
Hmm.
They're not perfect. And we need to abandon this idea that just because they are the enemy of my enemy, that doesn't make them your friend.
Right.
That doesn't.
Right.
And you have to realize that when it comes to politics, sometimes you have to play with motherfuckers you don't like and agree with, because you use them as a tool to get what you want. And that's why Republicans have been so successful. Because do you think Republicans like black people? Hell fucking no, they don't. But damn well you'll see them, Trump, blacks for Trump, blacks for Republicans, all that other bullshit, right?
Hmm.
Because they will use anybody. If it gets them a vote, they don't give a fuck. You think Republicans give a fuck about women? Hell no, they don't. But you know damn what? They'll prop a motherfucker up if they spit some shit for them. Because they don't care.
Yep.
It's all about winning. It's all about winning. And people on the left, and the reason I'm going on this tangent is because people on the left need to wake the fuck up. We can sit here and have these goddamn purity tests about like, oh, well, you look. At the end of the fucking day, you can either worry about arguing over stupid online Twitter discourse and Reddit discourse and debate purgatory, or you can start educating yourself and getting active.
Hmm.
Time's kind of running out. People need to start fucking doing something. And this isn't a call to violence. This is just saying people need to get a little bit more involved in their community and start doing something, because all this speculation, all of this like, well, I don't know, they don't respect my space, and like it's like, no man, like at the end of the day, we got to fucking win. If that means I have to use some moron ass libertarian who thinks that I'm on his side because I'm fucking against a crazy ass tax that was proposed, fuck it. He can think I'm his ally until shit push comes to shove, and then it's like, nope, you're just I just use you. Because you know what? People can say, oh, but that's not very pure of you. At the end of the day, I don't give a fuck. Truth be told, I don't give a fuck. When it comes to the end result of ensuring that basic people, everyday people, everyone, period, has not just access, I use quotation marks, but is given free healthcare, guaranteed housing, guaranteed work. Until that shit is done, I don't give a fuck what I have to do. Quite personally, I don't give a fuck who I have to use. I don't give a fuck what kind of propaganda I got to spit, because those are the things that I want. And, call me a radical, but hey, if you want to call me a fucking radical for wanting people to have a decent life, a life that we were, supposedly guaranteed through the United States Constitution, then I guess I'm a fucking radical then. If
Yep.
that makes me. If that makes me a fucking tanky, then I guess I'm a fucking tanky.
Agreed.
They're the new proxy wars, 100%.
Well, we can now speak to our security correspondent, Frank Gardner. And Frank, I just wanted you to
Thank you
talk
for
us
banning
through
that,
what's
Taco.
happened over the last few hours, because we saw crucially that meeting between Turkey, Russia, and
sorry for going
Iran.
on tangents today,
And
but
then
this
now
shit's
we're
got me all
hearing
worked up.
from
Yep.
the rebel
Cooking
leaders
over
saying
there.
that there will be some kind of managed transition happening in Syria. How has this transition been managed by the external
Cut me
actors,
off at
but
any
also
time.
within Syria at the moment?
Okay.
Well, I think the important stuff has happened on the ground, not at Doha, where these foreign ministers are meeting, because Turkey, the foreign ministers of Turkey, Iran, and Russia were the key players in this. But really, the situation in the last 24 hours has moved so rapidly as the rebels advanced both from Daraa in the south and from Homs in the north to close in on the capital. And it's very clear that the Syrian army had no stomach for this fight. They defected, they had surrendered.
And that point right there, I'm actually going to
They
let it keep
retreated,
playing.
they tore off
That point
enemy
right there,
forces,
just
put down
keep
their
this in
guns.
mind. So like the rebel forces, I'm not 100% on the numbers, but reports that I saw was like the rebel forces, the HTS, it was like 15,000, right? 15,000 strong on the ground. The Syrian army is like 300,000 people. So ultimately, what we saw here wasn't necessarily a rebel revolution. It was a fucking coup.
Yeah.
Because there were no battles. And in the beginning, specifically, numerous people that were reporting on the ground, a lot of the speculation was, okay, well, maybe Assad is like trying to make sure that he doesn't get a lot of casualties by allowing like basically like a blitzkrieg. And for those who are not familiar with the historical reference, blitzkrieg was a strategy that was developed by Nazi Germany during World War II, where the whole basis is to punch through, make a hole right in the middle of enemy lines, and get as far in as you can with artillery and infantry, so like tanks and shit. And as you start cutting a hole through the middle, then your flanks and your reinforcements can funnel through and create basically like a buffer zone to not only protect your flank, but also protect your back. And a lot of people are saying, oh, okay, well, like maybe Assad's just trying to, make sure he doesn't lose a bunch of troops trying to fucking defend these towns that are obviously going to get overrun no matter what. But as time went on, days went on, it became blatantly obvious that it wasn't necessarily that Assad wasn't ordering them to do that. It was just the soldiers didn't want to fucking fight.
Yeah, I heard the soldiers just gave up. They did. There was nothing. They didn't even do anything. See, this is the kind of shit that worries me, though. Like seeing that image right there of them on the back of the trucks with their guns and shit. Like, it just reminds me of like the old scary days of the 2000s.
Well, you have to think about this.
Like, there's a kid next to a rocket launcher. That should not be happening.
Two things about that. One, you have to keep in mind that as Americans, when we think of Islam, when we think of Arab people, this is the image that we get.
I know.
And it's for a very specific reason, to paint them out that they are violent. When you see these images, like you would just brought up, like, oh, this kid is right next to it. That is from an American privilege perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Because I hear what you're saying. Because me personally, I wouldn't want my fucking niece or my daughter this close to anybody holding like a rocket launcher and shit.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you have to keep in mind that this kid, he's probably lost the majority of his family. He's probably seen his fucking parents' heads get blown off by bombs that were given to nations from the United States.
Right.
This kid has known nothing but war in his area. These people have known nothing but colonialism, imperialism, death, famine, poverty, all at the hands of governments that have no fucking interest in their well-being at all whatsoever. So I hear what you're saying, but ultimately, like, that's an American lens. At the end of the day, if that's what they do, then that's what they, but ultimately it's not what they do. Like, Islam is not a violent religion.
No, I know. Like, go up one more second or two.
The Taliban seized the capital, Kabul, and the whole country, and the international community disappeared. Taliban
Did you pass
spokespeople
it
were going on
already?
television saying,
I went
nothing
back.
to fear, don't worry, we're going to respect women's rights. There's going to, we're
Like
not like
that
we were in
kind
the
of
past.
stuff, like them on
And
the
they're
back of
exactly like
trucks with their guns in the air. That's the kind of rebranding that they used to do in the 2000s. That's what I was talking about. It's
they
like they're
were in the
bringing all
past.
this kind of
It's been
stuff
an
back
absolute
again.
basket case for human rights and
That,
women's
like
rights.
that right there.
So
That.
there are any
Yeah, that's always been a
number of
thing, though.
ways
Like,
in
that's
which
been a
Syria
constant.
could now go
It's no
down a
different from
very
like
dark
military
path. It
parades.
could go the way of Libya, with
Oh,
rival
yeah.
factions, armed groups
You know what I
descending
mean?
into
I
some
never thought about it
tribal
like that, yeah.
religious friction. But
Like,
so
that is our
far,
military.
it's looking quite promising. And
They just always
And
show
again,
it to us like, look at these fucking scary guys with masks on in the back of trucks with AR whatever guns and shit, you know? It's like they make
oh, they got
they make you
AK-47s and
yeah, they
Toyotas.
make you
Well,
scared of it.
Well, and the thing is, right? Like you see that and you accept that, but nobody asks the question, like, okay, how come they're all in fucking Toyotas and Subarus and
Right.
holding AK-47s? Where's the tanks? Where's the fucking modern platform of rifles, right? Like, where are the the Armalite rifles? Where's all this fucking modern gear? Why don't they have it? Well, that's a good question. I'm glad hypothetical person asked. Well, specifically, most countries don't have modern militaries because of, you guessed it, imperialism. Because specifically, whether it was through sanctions, whether it was through government interference, whether it was through corporate manipulation, different areas are restricted from gaining access to certain equipment, certain deals with different countries that sell arms. So yeah,
Okay.
that's why they don't have tanks. That's why they don't have rockets and
I didn't
all that
even
other shit.
I didn't even think of it like that, because, and you're absolutely right. Like, that totally puts in perspective of, like, knowing that stupid information of, like, wasn't that like that's the areas where they were still like riding horses in World War II and fighting on horseback back then? Like, I just
Yeah.
literally just put
Well,
two and two
Germans did that too.
Oh,
Nobody ever
really?
wants to talk about that. Yeah, during World War II, Germans specifically were still using
Oh, okay.
horses because they didn't have enough fucking vehicles for a while. In the first
Okay.
several years of World War II, they were like still riding through on horseback and shit.
Yeah, see, that's what I didn't put two and two together. Like, of course, these were the areas that were probably riding horseback during World War II. I never put the fact of, they probably don't have enough money, so this has been like the next advancement from horsebacks is to Toyota trucks. But yeah, I never thought of it like as that is like, maybe they're still behind and they don't have, the money and the backing like other countries do, so they can't get it. What they do is when they show you the pictures of these guys in the back of Toyotas with their guns and stuff, in your own head, it makes you think like these are like crazy savages with like guns that just want to kill your family and stuff. Because I remember like 10, maybe 15 years ago, some guy that had a picture like that. That was his profile picture on Facebook, was like a bunch of dudes on a in a Toyota, in the desert with those guns, and he had wrote something to me or messaged me something on Facebook, and I had written back like, not today, Satan, or something like that. And then I screenshot it and posted it up on my Facebook. Like, this ISIS or Al Qaeda terrorist try to talk to me. There ain't no way I'm ever gonna give in to this. And it was just I based it off of that picture alone, because the media had manipulated and brainwashed me into thinking that those are the scary people. Those are the kind of people I should fear. But you're fucking right. These are guys in Toyotas with ARs, and we've got drones and nuclear warheads and shit. Like, what the fuck was I thinking?
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not about like what the fuck was I thinking. It's just that's how propaganda works. It makes you not question. It makes you not think. Um, but
Yeah.
no, like at the end of the day, other countries don't have military budgets in the trillions of dollars. Most other nations don't have budgets at all, anywhere near billions of dollars. So, um, or
Yeah.
anything close to like the hundreds of billions of dollars that our military receives, and a lot of that too. Like if you think about propaganda from the form of like movies or TV, right? Anytime you think of army, you think of tanks, you think of air force, you think of this, like you think of uniforms, matching weapons, matching equipment,
Mhm.
clear signs of like who's who, all that other bullshit.
Mhm.
And the issue is like because of that propaganda, because of our reinforcement of like militaries, you have to have uniforms, you have to have the advanced weapons, you have to have tanks, you have to have an air force. Our only concept of a nation having a military is seeing those things. And if we don't see those things and instead we replace them with people just driving regular civilian vehicles or maybe like an armored personnel carrier or two, but then just, civilian vehicles, we think of them as like either rebel groups or terrorist groups, depending on the way that the State Department spins it. Because we think to ourselves, like, well, shit, if the people really wanted them to be in power, the people would give them a military budget to give them tanks. Because you have to defend yourself, you have to defend your country, because that's what we think the military does for us by default. I'm not saying you and I, but people by default are built to believe that the military is there to protect us. What do they need to protect us? They need the latest gear. They need the latest guns. They need the latest fucking bombs, the latest technology, the whole nine. And Meanwhile, quote, the bad guys from the movies, all they needed was, like I said, a fucking Toyota and AK-47.
Mhm. And that's
The
the way we
West is
do it. That's the
largely
way we
staying
make it
out of
look.
it. It's going
Yeah.
to be for Syria's own people
No,
to
I'm
sort
glad
this
that you
one
brought
out
it up in that perspective
with the
because it's
backing,
important for
hopefully, of the
people
United Nations,
maybe who are listening or
and
just kind of
hopefully
lurking
without too
about
much meddling
to
from
Yeah,
hear
the
because
no,
maybe they
thank
never thought about it from
And
there.
Frank, what
Yeah,
do
I
you know
never thought about
about
it from that. So thank you
HCS's
for helping me with
capabilities
that.
to
I would
handle
have,
what is really a
yeah,
tense and fluid security
you're
situation
right.
across Syria?
Yeah, I mean,
It's a good
it's
way to
always very
otherize
difficult
these
when you've
countries
got
too.
rebel
Most
groups
militaries
that
need to
have
look
been
a
in
specific
opposition
way.
for years
Even
and
our own
years
enemies,
and have
North Korea
been
looks this
operating in a
way,
very
the same
small,
way
tightly
as we
controlled
do.
area. In the
These
case
guys
of
are
HCS,
savages. It's a way to
they had just
otherize
been in
them.
Idlib. They'd been
Well, and also North Korea has nuclear bombs, so they're respected a lot more. That's why even motherfuckers who are conservative, who hate Koreans in general, are like, yeah, well, we may not like them, but you can't say. You have to say they keep their shit in place. So again, it's all about aesthetic, right? Like as long as they have the look, as long as they got the gear, as long as they're tactical, as a lot of people call it, then that's all. That's the only definition
up
they
to the
need
far
to understand
northwest of the
military.
country. They
Mm-hmm.
don't have any experience
Like shit.
of
Why do you think
governing
specifically Israel keeps
non-Sunni
Palestine from
Muslims
being able to have an air
and a
force, to have a
wider
navy, to have an army?
cross
Because if they had
spectrum
those
of
things,
people,
people would
because
see
Syria is a
it and they go,
patchwork
"Wait
of
a minute,
Kurds, of
that's a
Christians, of
country.
Sunni
Those people
Muslims, of
have
Shia
rights."
Muslims, and I
But
think perhaps
they're
one of
not
the
viewed that
biggest
way.
threats
So
Mm-mm.
those things are
is
restricted from them.
friction between
But see, then brings up
the
my question
Alawite
is how are
minority from
that's
which
exactly
Bashar
what they're
al-Assad's
doing with
dynasty comes.
this
They are Shia.
leader
They're
of this
based in the
terrorist group in
northwest of
Syria,
the
allowing
country,
him to
to the
become
south of
president. So
Idlib.
they're doing
Um,
exactly what they said they
there could
wouldn't
be
do.
friction between them and the Sunni militants. And
No,
let's not.
no, I
Sorry,
I
Frank.
get that.
I just wanted to add that we've
Um,
got some
who are
images that have
people?
come in
Which part of
from
society, upper or lower?
Damascus,
What do
which
you
show
asking that
damage
part
to
for
the
specifically? Which
Iranian
part of society, upper or
embassy
lower?
in the country.
Because I'd
What
said
do
a
you know
lot,
about
and I'm
this
trying to
incident, and what
remember
does it tell us about
what part you
perhaps
might be
people's feelings
responding
towards
to.
Iran in Syria at the moment?
Well, many Syrians felt that their country had
And the other thing is this: I want to bring this up
on
too. While this fucking guy's talking about shit, I'm not
big
trying to
ally
dismiss anything he's
of
saying.
the
Maybe he's
Islamic
fucking a
Republic.
lot smarter. Well, I know he's a lot smarter than me.
It was their big
Um,
offensives from which
the other thing that I was thinking about
Saddam
too with this
Hussein
situation that's really
Hezbollah,
interesting
Lebanon. There were very
is
close relations between Bashar al-Assad
I talked about earlier when there
and
was a lot of the
the
confusion
groups
about
in the Islamic
whether
Republic in Iran.
Bashar al-Assad was alive because there was a whole disappearance of the plane and da 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 da. Da. I was starting to wonder, like, exactly maybe this happened because Putin gave the okay, right? Like maybe Putin and Iran were like, hey, we don't like the way that you handled the whole Palestine thing. You were kind of a pushover. You're not putting the PKK in place. You're not taking care of the HCS or the AQS. You're not doing anything. So like, we're gonna put you on ice, bro. Sorry, not sorry. I thought that maybe was part of it because ultimately, yes, Syria was essential for like only verbal allyship with Palestine, right? Like they had sent a little bit of aid, but in terms of offering any of their army, any logistical support, anything like that, Syria didn't do shit. Um, so that's part of the thing I think about too in this particular instance is just overall like Bashar's lack of action and lack of doing anything because ultimately I think that was part of his downfall. Personally, if you're Assad, okay, and again, I'm a fucking idiot, so maybe I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. But like if I'm Assad and I have intelligence at the level that he does, and I see that Israel is not only expanding into Palestine and, heightening their territory grab, but also doing it in fucking Lebanon, I would say, well, shit. I got the Golan Heights situation going on in my own backyard. The fucking Israeli expansion into Syria. If they're expanding to fucking Lebanon again, and they're fucking expanding and taking over, like Rafah, and they're expanding towards the Egyptian border because that's another part of the greater Israel experiment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, If I'm him, I'm going, well, fuck it. It's only a matter of time. You send some fucking support. You do something. But again, he doesn't give a shit.
Right.
Because if he did, he would actually do something.
Yep.
He would offer logistical support. So that's why when I hear people say, "Oh, well, Assad, he was in support of Palestine." Yeah, in words,
Mm-hmm.
no different than me. That motherfucker actually had a chance to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the difference is, right? If I had a fucking military of 300,000 in an army and an air force and a fucking navy and shit, you know what I'd do? I'd fucking use that shit to liberate my allies.
The future
Hell
of these
yeah.
bases is now uncertain, but Russia does have a fallback position in the form of Libya. It's got very close relations with General Khalifa al-Haftar in eastern Libya, based in Benghazi. It's got the use of air bases in Libya.
Benghazi.
So if it loses Syria, it still has a Mediterranean base. But by and large, this is a net loss for Russia. It looks weakened by it.
And that's the other thing too. Why I was really surprised that Putin didn't do anything, but then I ended up seeing a couple people put in perspective that made me go, oh, okay, maybe that's why. But I was thinking to myself, like, too, if you're Putin, you understand the implications that come with losing Syria. I mean, there was a specific reason Putin allied with Syria. It was the lone wolf over there, okay? And I was really surprised, but then again, looking back now, seeing some of the videos of the soldiers just basically leaving, abandoning their posts, going into civilian clothes and shit. I'm pretty sure like Putin probably had a reaction of like, well, fuck it. If they're not going to fight for their own country, then what the fuck am I going to do sending my countrymen to go die for them? Right?
Right.
Like I'm already losing people in another war, in another land expansion. I can't fucking lose more people over there. I can't fight two war fronts at once.
Yeah.
I can't.
Right.
So.
And it's a setback geopolitically, geostrategically for Russia.
And in the midst of all of this, I guess the foreign power that might think their actions have been successful is Turkey. Just talk to us about Turkey's role in what's been happening over the last few days, but also.
He had to bring North Korea, or he had to bring North Korea and Ukraine just to keep going. See, that's the thing. That's the thing that people need to start realizing about the fucking Western spin, the Western media spin about that. Putin getting North Korea to come fight with him isn't about him needing the help. Because if Putin really wanted to, he could end that war today.
Yeah. So then what was the point of bringing those troops over there?
The point was, for one, to show that he is not like the West. His vision of land expansion doesn't come with bombs and bullets and civilian casualties. It comes with infrastructure and order and law. So bringing North Korea into it is saying, hey, I'm no longer isolationist Russia. I'm letting other troops from another country, ally or not only be part of my fighting force, but see how we do things.
From another isolationist country? Is everybody just
From
going to
another
be
isolationist.
everybody's just going to be isolationist, and then just the leader of every country is just going to work with other leaders like, I want to buy that from you, and then that's it. That's the only thing.
Well, the privatization that honestly, I think
How are you going to be
the New World
isolationist
Order,
with global market?
the New World Order is going to be the bringing, because they talk about like borderless concepts, right?
Right.
And I think what they mean by that, because it's very deceptive, because it allows it to become like a leftist perspective too, because a lot of leftists are like, dude, fuck borders, right? Because then you can conflate it. And you can say, oh, New World Order, that's communism. They want borderless areas, blah, 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 blah. I think personally, what they mean by that is no longer governmental control of areas. It's private control of areas. Governments no longer say who is allowed to live on this land, who's allowed to do things. The fucking oligarch is.
Ugh.
That's what the New World Order is about. It's not about open borders and fucking free nations and moving about and shit. No, it's about privatization. That's been the whole thing. That's why they specifically throughout time have been chipping away at public programs to underfund them, so then they can say, hey, see, look at public education, bad. Don't look at the fact that we've been taking away money from these programs for public education year after year after year. Don't look at all of the laws that we passed that put restrictions on the way that people could teach. Don't look at anything related to that. Just look at the fact that that thing is not going well. You know what does go well? Businesses. We should turn schools into business. We should look at it from that. We should make profit off of it. And that's how it gets sold. And people go, oh, well, you know, that's right. Fucking healthcare. That's how healthcare got privatized, right? Like a lot of it's, you know, becoming more and more privatized. How did that happen? Because they started cutting funding and programs for health to make it bad, so then people have resentment towards that program because they remember people telling them how great it was, not so great for them. So then they can come to them as the savior, the Messiah. They can say, listen, everybody's always talking about how they're going to fix it and things stay the same, and they want you to use the same system that's fucking you over. Well, guess what? I got a better idea. I got something that's great. We're going to run it like a business. And when people think about business, they think about profits. They think about Wall Street. They think about executives, fancy cars, suits, ties, the whole nine. So they go, oh, okay, well, that sounds pretty good to me. And that's how we got to where we are now. It's going to be the privatization. So that's what Putin wants, because ultimately what a lot of these fucking dictators, a lot of these authoritarians are realizing, government can be whatever the fuck you want it to be. People no longer necessarily have a team that they root for. People root for individuals now, right? There was something I remember, it was like 5-10 years ago, that was talking about brand identity struggling, right? For marketing and advertising, brand identity and brand loyalty was struggling because people, younger people specifically, weren't attached to corporations, logos, all that other shit.
Right.
They had individual preference.
Uh-huh.
And that's what they're exploiting, is the individualistic preference, the liberal individualism.
Yeah, but
Yo, what's going on, Rivet Head? Sorry, go ahead.
It's crazy to know that, or to realize that we've pretty much, like, just in one scope, like the libertarians have commercialed themselves into begging for the thing that they warned us about 20 years ago.
Yeah. Well, what's the other quote? Being a leftist is being right just 20 years in the future or whatever. Rivet, how's it going? When they say
Rivet Head?
borderless, they mean militarized borders patrolled by automated Elbit towers and drones. Yeah. The robot dogs and shit.
Right.
Crucially, how it could shape
Sorry, I
what's
had
going to happen
to
next
mute
in
there. I had a
Syria.
coughing attack.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, Turkey has backed
Lost some
the
mercenaries that he
Islamist rebels.
expected to do that.
I think we should just define this.
Well, he didn't lose some mercenaries. The mercenaries tried
Islamist
fucking throwing a
is not
coup on him, and he
Islam.
executed the leader. And the rest of them were like, yeah, okay, we'll do whatever you want.
Islam, the religion, should be an integral part of government.
And that's the other thing, too.
Separate.
A lot of governments don't even
So
use their
these
own
rebels
militaries
are
now. They just use
Islamists.
private
That
fucking
doesn't mean
mercenary
they're the same
groups.
as jihadists.
Right.
There are some jihadists amongst them.
Because
There
for
is
two
a
reasons.
overlap
One,
between them.
nobody likes the idea of
Turkey
seeing
is
soldiers,
also
uniforms,
roughly, and it's pretty
getting
much
fucking
Islamist
blown up.
government.
Nobody likes that
It's
shit,
Friends of the
right?
Muslim
Wow.
Brotherhood, for example. So
That's one.
Turkey
Yeah.
has been backing the rebels
It's a good one.
and will be very much involved, I think, in the future
Sorry, I got
shape of
distracted by
Syria.
what he
It
was
shares
saying.
a long border with Syria, a fairly porous border in places, and it's got a vested interest in having a stable southern neighbor.
He's talking about Israel.
I think a big question mark also hangs over what happens with the Kurds, because
This is the
the
part that I
Kurds
was really
control
looking
much.
forward to, and I'm glad that we're starting to hear it. I was actually just talking about this angle of it today with my brother's partner, because the Kurds historically, for those who are listening, the Kurds historically have been fucked over time and time and time and time again, especially by the United States. But not specifically isolated to the United States, because other Arab groups, you know, the Sunnis and the Shiites, they all fucking use and abuse the Kurds, right? Like the Kurds are one of the biggest persecuted groups. Back in the 70s and 80s, they were fighting for their own liberation, and for Kurdistan, it was something that they were fighting for. That was obviously shut down thanks to nations like Turkey, and they basically were kind of had like a forced assimilation into Turkey. Um, with the guise of Turkey, you know, allowing them to keep some of their language and culture, because there was a really huge crackdown um, on whether or not people who were Kurdish could have their, you know, keep to their language, that could believe in their version of Islam. It was really fucking bad. So it's just something I've been thinking about too, because uh, the Kurds they're holding on by a fucking thread.
Yeah.
Much of the Syrian Kurds control much of the northeast of Syria, and that includes their control of a number of camps, prison camps, that are containing both members of ISIS, so-called Islamic State, and their families. If that control was to be lost through attacks by Turkey, then there is a risk that ISIS could become resurgent in Syria.
And a point on that, Frank, sorry to interrupt you. We've had
and one of the main reasons why I fuck with the Kurds, because people are probably like, okay, well, like, why are you picking a side out of all that shit? It's not necessarily that I'm fully on their side, but historically, their perspective is one that is through Marxist Leninism. Obviously, throughout the years, a lot of the ideologies have changed. Some of them have shifted. Some of them have been somewhat conflated. But overall, I would say, comparative to the numerous other groups that we have used and abused, out of them, they probably stand taller, in my opinion. And I know Rivethead, you definitely seem to be somebody who is up on your knowledge. I'm not sure if that's something that you agree with as well, but that's just my own personal spin.
In from a US Pentagon official saying, we are aware that the chaotic and dynamic circumstances on the ground in Syria could give ISIS space to find the ability to become active, to plan external operations.
Whoa. Wait a minute. Did they just say ISIS? I thought Trump defeated ISIS. Wait a minute. Why is nobody talking about this? First off, we need to see Hunter Biden's laptop. That's the first thing we need to see. All right. Then we need to see Hillary's emails, and then we need to see this. We need to see ISIS, because my beautiful big boy Trump told me that he eliminated them. They're gone.
Donald Trump
Fake news.
has said that the US should stay out of what's happening in Syria, but do you think that's going to be the case going forward?
Well, the US has a base in southeast Syria at a place called Tanf. It's right by the triple border with Jordan and Iraq. And there's about 900 US special forces and support logistics people there.
You want to see something interesting, because we're talking about like rebel groups and shit like that, not having tanks and shit. Ask yourself, where the fuck did this HTS group get a tank, an American tank?
All right.
Job is to keep an eye on ISIS.
Because that's the other thing. Where the fuck do they get all that weapons? Get all the weapons, get all the oil, all the gas, all the guns, all the ammo. That shit just doesn't fucking peep-o-poof. That shit just doesn't manifest itself. You don't have Doctor Strange fucking opening portals to the nether and pulling shit out his ass.
I wish.
And every now and then, CENTCOM, the US Central Command, will issue a press statement saying that
Trump would never lie. Yo, what's up, Saturday?
What's up,
suspected
David?
ISIS or Al-Qaeda positions. So even
Operation
though
Dumbo
ISIS
dropped
was
right in.
defeated in 2019, it lost its last stand at a place called Baghuz.
Well, no, exactly.
in Syria,
And I mean,
and it lost
let's
its
be
physical
honest, when it comes
caliphate.
to
Ideologically,
areas
it hasn't
specifically
gone
like
away.
Syria, it's not that hard to smuggle in guns,
Organizations
weapons,
like
and,
ISIS
and
Al-Qaeda
equipment.
absolutely prey on
Because
prey with
motherfuckers are
PR,
poor.
they
You give them
prey
a
on
little stack of money.
chaos, confusion, breakdown of law and order. where people feel dispossessed, that they've got no future, that's where they tend to step in and take advantage of it. So there is a risk if Syria starts to spiral, if Jolani and the rest of his rebel group, if they don't establish a smooth transition of power very quickly and move to elections and basically calm the place down, if they don't do that, there is absolutely the risk that ISIS and Al Qaeda could become resurgent and form new bases.
That would be so fucking wild. Just think about that for a second, right? Like the two forces that we supposedly defeated. Because you had, Bush with the fucking "We done it," right? That banner on the fucking on the warship.
Yep.
And then Trump with his, famous speech, "I defeated ISIS. I took out every single one of them. They're officially gone." Like, it's just funny how that shit revolves. And I remember Jimmy, and I know this is something that you've talked about that's even been ringing in your head, but when we first started talking, like getting to know each other and everything, we had conversations about like history, like my infatuation with it, and I had always talked about like it's always funny because people always say we learn history so we don't make the same mistakes we did in the past, and I've always argued no, we learn history because we want to understand what the fuck's going on right now. And that's exactly what's now. So like if you want to understand what's going on now, just go back to 2000, 2001, all the way up until 2010, 12.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to a lot of the stuff in the Middle East, right? Or even if you want to go from like 2012 all the way up until 2018, 2019 for Ukraine, right? So it's always a rhyme. It's always something that is just eerily similar, just
And
different
start planning
circumstances, or
international
maybe
Yeah.
just
counterattacks
different
from
names.
Syria.
Yeah. And ever since
And
I've talked to
finally,
you,
I
I've
guess it's
started realizing it
important
more
to
and more
remind
because
our
even in,
audience
my own
about just
lifetime,
how
just with the
deadly the
Syria
civil
thing
war in
alone, we were
Syria
talking about
has
this
been.
4 years ago, and
This
now
is a war where
it's
we saw
coming
the
back
emergence
around
of
all over
ISIS, as
again.
we
So,
were discussing
we're
Mhm.
all of us are
also
already
chemical
starting to see
attacks
our own
and
deja vus in
intense
our
Russian
lifetime. And
bombardments of cities
ever
like
since I've been getting into
Aleppo.
more and
This
more
really
history,
is
you're
a
right. It's just
defining moment for
it's like a
Syria.
wave.
And
It
so
like
we've
comes
had
in
some
and
people
goes
who are
out and comes
saying
in.
they're just
Doesn't
waiting
mean
that
it's ever
perhaps we're going to
stopped.
have
It's just us
some
paying
days
attention
without
goes in and out, in and out.
bombardment in the country.
Well, no, exactly.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
again too, it's
Russia
important to have
bombing the
that
rebels is
context because ultimately
right
it's
up
to
to last
understand
minute. So,
the present and know which ways work to get
I
out
think
of
it's
it
going to be
so
much
you
more
Right.
can work
complicated.
towards that, right?
Right.
I
It's
can't
not it's not a
underestimate
position
or
that's one of
underscore
hopelessness. It's one that's like
the
I'm trying to
extent
be rational
of
and not necessarily
prison
have
gulag that the
those
Bashar al-Assad
emotional
regime
reactionary takes because I
oversaw.
remember
And it wasn't just him, it was his father as well,
how
his
I
successor.
was when I
So
was
for
obviously I
some
was
older
younger,
Syrians, some older
but I
people
remember
remember
how I
the name
was
Hama, the
September
morning of
11th
the
and
Qatar
on,
massacre, where
right? I
Hafez
remember the way
Bashar's
that I
father
thought,
essentially laid siege
and it was
to the
bad.
Muslim Brotherhood uprising in the city of
Same.
Hama, in
For
which well over
quite some
10,000
time,
people, civilians,
I
died.
held on
Um,
to
the
anti-Arab and
ceasefire was
anti-Islamic
imposed. It
rhetoric
was
and
not just
ideas.
Yeah.
I
Saidnaya,
was
which is the
suspicious of
famous
anybody who
punchline
looked
site Damascus.
remotely Arab, even if they
There were so many
weren't.
different
Yeah.
branches of the military
Same.
And
intelligence deep state
I don't
that
want
Bashar
to
oversaw.
get into that
The Air
position
Force
again.
intelligence,
Right.
the
Because I
Cold
remember
War
basically the
intelligence,
sentiment was at
military
that point in
intelligence,
time,
political intelligence,
if you didn't
all had
support
their torture chambers.
the US
And
going to
the
war with
extent of
Afghanistan and Iraq,
organized,
you were
systemic
un-American, you were a
torture
traitor,
in
you were a piece
Syrian
of shit, you
jails
were
was
ostracized from
this
your
scale.
community,
So many thousands died under torture.
you were a terrorist
I mean,
sympathizer.
there are an
It,
awful lot
it
of scores that we
it's
Right.
fucking
could
bad. And
multiply.
I can't allow myself
But
to
for
fall
now,
down that rabbit hole
the
again.
interesting,
Because
Right.
again,
these are
things are only
honest
going to keep
intelligence cases.
happening.
We're not talking about people who've,
Well,
done a
it's
bit
just
of
yeah, it's that
burglary on the side.
otherization.
We're talking about people
I mean,
who
I
have
still,
perhaps
not to this
fought
day,
and
but in the
defeated in
last
war.
5 years or so,
And if
I
you
still
remember
fought it.
back
It's probably just been
time before
within the last
today,
couple of years
back
that
in
I've started,
2011, 15
realizing,
schoolboys in a
how
town
we
called
think
Daraa
now.
in the
And
south of Syria brought on
honestly, truly think
board
it's
the Arabic
the
phrase
making of America. I mean,
Shabli
we've been talking about
Starlatan,
how,
meaning
Egyptians,
the people
they had
demanded
batteries and
downfall of those people.
computers, and
That
they
got
were
them arrested.
they were
People got
advanced in their
abused.
own ways, and
One was very badly
we don't even
mutilated.
give them credit. We
And
give
so
credit to these
horrified the
white
people of
people, and
Daraa
it's
that
like,
they came out in protest.
oh, okay,
That
like
was
this
met with
is
bullets
they've
and
been making us
repression.
think that
And
anybody that
then
looks
the
remotely
protests
Arabic is
took
like some
off.
savage
And
that's going to kill
Bashar
us,
could have listened to
not,
them.
fully
Ibn Khalid
understanding that,
al-Bahrain,
they're
far from a perfect
they're the
democracy, but he
creators of
did
our
at least
fucking
listen to
alphabet.
some
Like they created
reforms.
our
He
goddamn
put in a few
alphabet.
reforms.
Like
But Bashar
they are
al-Assad
a part of our
refused
lives
all
every fucking day,
he
and we
decided to toughen
other
out
them. automatically, instantly, because of what the government and elitists want us to do, think that they're bad people.
And Frank, I just want to
That was by
share
design. As
with our
Americans
audience
and
that
the
the
West more
current
broadly,
stage is that
you
the
spent a
Syrian
lifetime steeped in
rebel groups they
anti-communism.
have
Then
started an
post-Cold
attack
War, they
on
did
the Kurdish
switcheroo
forces,
from
killing more
anti-communism
than
to
12
anti-terrorist
Welsh
Islamic boogeyman.
families.
Yeah.
No, exactly. That was basically,
This war
and I'm
has
glad that you
begun,
said it in
and
that
what
lens because
Turkey
you're
is defining
100%
as what's
right.
happening
Like
in Syria.
the 9/11 shit was basically our Cold War, right? The 80s had a Cold War that lasted all the way up into like the late 90s or the mid to late 90s when neoliberalism won, right? Like there was peace and stability, fucking Margaret Thatcher and fucking Bill Clinton and all those motherfuckers, right? Like all these great people who were looked at and revered as great pioneers of stability and economic growth and all this other shit.
Mhm.
So no, 100%. They just did the
They
switcheroo.
they try to bring us back to the Cold War in 2016 when Trump won with the whole Russia gate, and Russia try to rig our elections and shit. Like these old motherfuckers from the 80s try to come back at us millennials and Gen Zers are like, you got to be scared of the Russians. The Russians are the ones that put Trump in. So they try to bring us back to the Cold War just 8 years ago, and now it seems like they're trying to mesh in the both of them. Like Russia is still this scary, scary thing, and so are Arabic people in the Middle East. It's like they're trying to meld the two together now.
Well, you got to think about it too. The people who were saying that specifically about Russia were what? The liberals, the Democrats, who at that point in time, because of Trump, they had to take a position of being pro-Arab and pro-Islam. So they couldn't come out and say, hey, fucking, this is bad. They had to be the party that appealed to the aesthetic of, acceptance, right? Liberalism.
Right.
So that's why they focused on Russia, because they are part of the sect that's like, we're going to still talk about communism, because Republicans do it too, conservatives do it too, but their main focus right now is Islam. That has been their focus ever since fucking September 11th, right?
Right.
As to where the Democratic Party, they don't want to attack, Islam or whatever it may be, because that is bad optics for them. They're supposed to be the party. That's why Kamala Harris did so bad, and that's why Democrats are losing so much support, because of their fucking terrible optics they've had on Palestine. Because
Right.
even as much as there is anti-Islamic sentiment in the United States, that shit starts going away when you start seeing women and children blown up and shit.
Yeah.
That shit changes.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to bring this up.
Oh.
Keep this in mind. This was 2017 from the U.S. Embassy in Syria. The core of HTS is Nusra, a designated terrorist organization. I don't know why I had like a fucking German accent that came through. Designated. This designation applies regardless of what name uses it or what groups merge into it. HTS is a merger, and any group that mergers into it becomes a part of Al Qaeda's Syrian network. Al
Hmm.
Qaeda's, right? Mohammed Al Jalini. Well, keep that name in mind. Keep that name in mind, because hold on, let's see. Uh, did I have it up? Oh, wait, no, maybe it's on this. Because that's the guy that's leading the Syrian rebel forces. And CNN gave this man an interview. They gave him a
What?
fluff piece. They gave him a fluff piece. They're asking him softball fucking questions. It was no different from when they do interviews with Biden or with Trump. They're like, so are you for like gay rights and stuff? Like, it was just stupid shit like that. And that's the spin that they're putting on it. Because ultimately, how could something be bad if they openly say that they supposedly support women's rights and gay rights? Let's look at what happened in Afghanistan after we left. Because the Taliban assured the United States that they would not continue with their Ba'athist interpretation of Islam, right? They were going to allow women to go to university, to have jobs. They weren't going to be forced to wear the hijab. None of that shit. Well, guess what ended up fucking happening after the United
Just
States left? They're like,
kidding.
yeah, we're not doing any of that
Yeah.
shit. We don't give a fuck, dude. The hell are you
Yep.
talking about?
Yep. They gotcha'd. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Just
My
kidding.
angle on this is how the fuck are they gonna sit here and interview this guy and say that he's gonna be a great leader for a country when he's a this is a terrorist group, they are deemed a terrorist group. He's a leader of a terrorist group.
He beheaded people. You know
They
how the media is
they're
always
gonna
talking about Hamas beheading babies and shit? This was a motherfucker that beheaded people on camera and laughed about it and
Yeah.
joked about it.
But they're gonna let this guy be the leader and say, like, the country needs, that this is a good guy. But, like, what just happened a couple months ago with the leader of Hamas? What happened to him on video? I'm pretty sure it wasn't an interview that happened to him. I'm pretty sure half
No.
of his arm was off. He threw a stick at a drone and they blew his ass up.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't that guy get to have a chance to be a leader of Palestine? Why is Palestine not a fucking country right now with their own fucking rights and the leader of Hamas as their fucking leader? But this guy gets a fluff piece and gets an interview and gets to be the leader of Syria. Like, this shit pisses me the fuck off. That's the angle I'm taking it at. I'm sorry. That
No, no, no. And
Ooh,
and and that's a good angle to take because ultimately it forces people who either take the position of saying, "No, I support and back what's happening," or who take the position of like, well, both are bad, right? Because the issue is you can make an argument that things that Hamas has done are bad, and you can make an argument that, things that Assad has done are bad because they have done shit that is fucking horrendous. They have
yeah.
100%. But, and this is the key thing, and this is a huge but, when you, especially if you're looking at it from the lens of Hamas, you are specifically a government entity that has been deemed a terrorist group
Yeah.
for a place that's not a state or a nation state. They have no sovereignty.
No,
They have no military.
no.
Their diet is forced upon them from the
Mm-hmm.
people who occupy them.
Mm-hmm.
Their water sources either get turned off or poisoned at whim.
Mm-hmm.
The specific areas where there were peace agreements that were made years after the Nakba, the first Intifada, the second
Mm-hmm.
Intifada,
Right.
whether it be West Bank, or go ahead.
They're an oppressed people in an apartheid land. I don't even think is Hamas even deemed a terrorist? Even if they were deemed a terrorist organization, they were elected by the people. So technically, if you look at it through a bigger perspective, the leader of Hamas is technically the president or the prime minister, the leader of Palestine, and his quote unquote terrorist people underneath are actually his military. That's the military up for the government of that leader. So I shouldn't even be comparing the two because this guy that's being pushed up as the new leader of Syria is a rebel group. So they're rebels.
Mhm.
Like Palestine and the
They're a
Hamas
terrorist
group.
group.
Palestine
They're
and
a
Hamas.
terrorist group. No, no, no. They don't get to be called rebels because if they're called rebels, then you know what? Hamas are rebels too.
Right, but Hamas wasn't even rebels. Those were actually like democratically elected. That was a democratically elected leader
So
with a military
the thing
government, a
is,
military underneath him.
so yes and no because Hamas ultimately is the government, but there is also the militant, not military, but the militant faction of Hamas, which are two separate entities of the same arm. So like
But
one
wouldn't that be
one
the
is like,
military?
well, I mean it's their military, but I mean they don't have tanks, they don't have missile
Right.
systems, they're not even allowed to have guns
Right, but if
in
we're gonna look
Gaza.
at it differently and not think that military only like you were saying earlier, we
Mhm.
cannot look at it as only military is people with tanks and guns and airplanes and nuclear warheads. Like, even though they were,
No,
a
100%, and
100,
that's with
you know,
understanding that sentiment.
okay,
No. I
okay,
hear what you're saying. That's with understanding that sentiment, but Hamas is part of it is governmental, right? Because ultimately they have to be presented in that way because it was a group that was basically started and funded by the United States and Israel. If we just want
right,
to be honest for a minute, okay?
right.
And part of the presentation, you couldn't just have an armed armed rebel group come in because it's like, okay, you guys take out the PLO, what the fuck comes next? We can't just, have whoever wants to grab power. There has to be some sort of order. So that's why they had to have the illusion of the governmental, because ultimately some of the governmental positions are kind of uh somewhat of a joke. I mean, there are some obviously people that want to do good, but like at the end of the day, there's only so much they can do. But even further back, okay, because I'm getting a little bit sidetracked there.
Hmm.
It To go back to what I was saying, they have none of those things. They're restricted all those things, and then on top of it, the group that's in charge now, like Jimmy had pointed out, they were voted in, but they were voted in a way for two different things. One, at that particular time, George Bush was very anti about getting things somewhat stabilized in the Middle East because obviously because of his big fuck ups and things weren't going so well with the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. What did he need to do? Well, you need to get Israel to start fucking holding shit down. You need to start getting them to do what they do. So they needed to be like, hey, we know Palestine's been an issue for you. We want to get rid of the PLO. Things aren't changing. Things aren't getting better. This two-state solution shit isn't fucking working. We need to just go ahead and go. We need to go ahead and go. We need to show the Palestinians that there is no coexistence. There is no ability to do this. It just has to be Israel for Israelis, for Jews only, right? Um,
Okay.
and because of that, you had the forced vote that was put and pressured onto Palestine because the Palestinian government was running. Things weren't going good, obviously, because they're fucking living under an apartheid. People were protesting. There was a really large, kind of like an Arab Spring movement that was going on. And the government was getting pressure from Israel and the United States, and they were saying, "Hey, listen, like, you guys keep saying you guys want to run elections and stuff like that because you want to, you want democracy and all this shit. We're not fucking ready. We can't do this right now. It's not even election time. Like, this isn't good. Like, we want a fair election, but like, this just won't work. Like, things aren't the moment." And you know what ended up happening? They fucking forced it. And you know what ended up happening? Hamas fucking won. Because Hamas, at that point in time, wasn't a governmental entity. It was only a militant group. And they were fucking killing people and doing shit. And this is something to keep in mind with just what happened recently with the CEO. After people have been having to see for years and years and years and years and years of their government failing to protect them, they saw somebody take action. Whether right or wrong, it was action. It was somebody doing something. And ultimately, when people are desperate, morality gets pushed to the side.
Hmm.
It's what the whole system is built upon. Because right now, the majority of people in America, and I'm just using this as a quick lens, the majority of people in America, their lives suck. Their lives are overwhelming. So ultimately, they can't spend time thinking about other people suffering. They don't have the luxury of doing that. So with with that neoliberal individualism, you fail to basically humanize anybody whose suffering is outside of your own vision. And I'm gonna go ahead and play this video real quick because my daughter's in here and she goes CBs. Hi, JJ.
Good
Where
night,
to start in
JJ.
trying to understand the magnitude of what's just happened in Syria. Here in the center of Damascus, just hours ago, still Bashar al-Assad's nominal seat of power. In his
Sorry, I
dynastic
started getting
heartland and
distracted there at
putative
the end because
holdout on the
she came in
Mediterranean
here.
coast,
And
where
she's
they
just
ride
so
a
cute.
statue of his father through the streets.
Aw.
In Hama, seized in the Assad era, or
Oh, let me pause real quick because Rivet had said something. HUS also has a designation and haven't been elected anywhere, but right now they're geopolitically useful to Empire. Funny how that works. It is funny. It is really fucking funny how that works. And again, it's not like they were voted in. America loves talking about they love supporting democracy. Well, they weren't
I
voted
just
in.
I just can't believe they are like allowing some uh, deemed terrorist organizational leader to be the president of this entire country while they're watching the actual leader of the country run and hide in another country. It's
Yeah.
wild to me.
Yeah. No, to go back to what I was saying, and again, sorry, I was trailing off because I was distracted with my daughter. When you have a system that has been built to just cripple you and have all of these issues, it makes it the default to just basically say fuck it and lose that sense of humanity.
hmm Well,
Think about it first.
I don't see how they're going to expect this to be anything good. Like a leader of a deemed terrorist organization is going to lead the country. Like some other faction, some other rebel, quote unquote, rebel group isn't going to try to fight it. Like our history hasn't shown us, even recent history hasn't shown us that this shit doesn't work. Like Libya, look at Haiti, look at some African countries are dealing with the same thing. Like,
Sudan.
yeah, we take down their leader of the country, and then all of a sudden these quote unquote gang leaders fight it out, and we just let them fight it out for however long it takes them to fight it out to be the leader. We actually don't even let him. Isn't the one in Haiti, like the barbecue guy, still trying to be the leader, but he's fighting with other ones? So, like, it's how I just don't understand, like, our other countries, we've proven this to not be a good idea, but we're right on fucking Channel 4 News, CNN, MSNBC, we're allowing this to happen.
Well, yeah, because if you look at history, people are always okay, the Vietnam War. Obviously there was a very huge anti-war sentiment that was going on, but there was also a lot of fucking people who supported Vietnam and they looked at people who were anti-war protesters as traitors and pieces of shit, right? But then those same motherfuckers that hated on motherfuckers that were anti-Vietnam, guess what? During the 80s and 90s, guess what they said? Oh man, I was anti-war, man. I was anti-Vietnam War, man. I was down, man. I was with the movement, man. All that hippie bullshit. Because liberalism in its core is historical context without the context. It's just historical analysis without the analyzation of anything. So you look at history and you say, oh yeah, that bad. But you don't think about the present using a historical lens because the way that history is taught in schools or even just presented through the media is that history is the past. That shit that happened before. People who focused on the past aren't thinking about the future. That's the way that it's been presented. So that's part of that's part of the issue right there. I saw Rubbit said something. They're fine with the region being balkanized and further destabilized because Israel, U.S., Turkey find this preferable for the moment. No, 100%, and that's why. And that's the other thing too.
It,
The
it's
reason,
it's like that Zoolander movie part where Will Ferrell looks over at the lady and he's like, cognitive dissonance. It's so in right now, that meme from that movie.
yeah, no, but like really, if you think about it globally, okay. For example, whenever you hear anybody in the U.S. talk about Sharia law or how Islam is violent, right? They love talking about it, and they'll bring up Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan. How come they never bring up Saudi Arabia? How come they never bring up UAE?
Fucking preach, brother.
How come they never bring up Qatar? Why? Because they're Western backed. They have Western influence as well as the Gulf influence, and ultimately they all just want the same thing, which is money and profit. Right? Just like you see in The Wire, bodies gets people's attention, which is why Putin hasn't done what he could do in Ukraine, because bodies gets you bad attention. If you kill a bunch of people to take a country the way that the United States has been doing since the fucking 1900s, or even beforehand, really, if we're just being honest, since its inception.
Yeah.
If you just do that, everybody's going to fucking hate you. But if you do it the way that China's been doing it, if you do it the way that Russia's been trying to do it, which is through a supposed United States lens of a democratic process, a rebuilding process, then guess what? People like you a little bit more. Think about Al Capone. That motherfucker had a lot of bodies, but you know what else he did? He had soup kitchens where he fed people. He gave people money that lived in the neighborhood to keep themselves afloat. Why? Because it's important to have the support of the people. You do a little favor for them, and they'll do whatever the fuck you want.
That's smart.
There was a fascinating Napoleon quote from a book I read last year, Read Bodies, in the news. Let me see if I can dig it up. Ooh, yes, please do. I love shit like that. I like that. I love when things connect.
Vest to embody the emergence of a new Syria.
But no, I was also just gonna say real quick too, but like, you know, they always like to talk about Sharia. The motherfuckers that do Sharia law, the motherfuckers that stone women to death, that behead people, guess what? They're the motherfuckers that we support. They're the motherfuckers that kill the governments that the United States tell us is bad. Because you know what? As much as I have said that Assad was a bad guy, at the end of the day, you want to know what? He at least was protecting his people's autonomy for the time being. Obviously, again, that comes with a caveat of understanding he was not anywhere near perfect. He did commit crimes against humanity, 100%. But ultimately, he was working towards the overall good for his country, for his people.
Yep.
I hate saying his country because that makes me sound like a nationalist, and I'm not. But for his people.
Right.
But perhaps the most instructive place to look is here, in the former regime's darkest corner.
Oh, this was the
brothers
brothers'
prison,
underground
north
base
of
or whatever,
Damascus,
right?
where they killed
Or
so
bunker?
many thousands, they built a crematorium outside.
Or wait, no,
A
this
young
was the
child
prison.
comes into view. Look at that boy, poor thing, they say. These women, at the heart of a brutal industrial oppression, being freed, being told to say God is great, not to worry about
Yeah, this is the
possessions,
prison
about
that they
ID
had,
cards, about
liberated.
where to go and how. Another prison, the same story. He says, there's no state anymore, sister. Damn the state, it's fallen. Come down, come on. Russia's foreign ministry left to confirm that Assad was...
Also, ask yourself this too. Why the fuck were there cameras around for that moment? And think about what's happening in that moment. Women were being freed. People were being freed from jail. Why are they showing that? Why are they allowing journalists to be part of that?
Right.
Easy answer. It's propaganda. They want to present themselves as the moderates. Rivet's head had said it earlier, and it was perfect. The moderate, rebel. He's a dreamboat. He's perfect. Yeah, he might have killed some people, but, he's doing it for good reasons. That's why they showed that part. That's why they allowed the cameras to be on. Because truth be told, if they didn't have to worry about being propped up by the United States, if it wasn't Syria and it was some other place, they probably would have just kept them motherfuckers in the jail or just killed them. If we're just being honest. If we're just being 100% honest.
Right. Well, yeah, that's another question that I want to ask. Why is BBC and all these other people, media, allowed to be there the day that this thing is toppled? But there still
Well, it's
hasn't
not that
been
BBC
media.
was.
There still hasn't
Okay.
been media allowed in Gaza.
Yeah, well, that's another good point too. And look at this tank. Look at this tank. That's an American tank. For any of my U.S. military junkies who might be lurking in chat, this is a fucking American tank. You don't believe me? Take a Google image, take a photo, and do a Google search.
Right. No,
Do
you're
a Google
right.
image search.
I didn't even think
Was
about the
now out of
optics
the
on that
country,
too.
having left
We were just
instructions
talking
to
about
transfer power
them
peacefully.
being in
Assad's prime minister saying he will
Toyotas.
stay in Syria.
These
to
guys are
hand over
rebels and they
government
have
functions
tanks.
to a
And
transitional
Syria's
administration.
military has Toyotas.
But for now, real
No,
power
no, no.
rests with this
Syria's
man,
military has
Abu
tanks
Muhammad
and shit.
al-Jalani.
Okay.
They have an
leader
Air
of the
Force.
Islamist
They have
HTS
helicopters.
Army,
Oh, sorry.
leader of the Islamist HTS forces, listed as terrorists by many countries.
But why does this motherfucker, who in 2017 was listed as a terrorist by the United States, now seen as like the Zelensky of the Middle East?
Right.
that spearheaded the regime's collapse. For days, he's been talking in terms of moderation, of safeguards for minorities.
Cardinal
Inside
Newman said of
Damascus's
Napoleon,
Umayyad Mosque, a message of
he understood the
victory
grammar
for
of
Sunni
gunpowder.
Islam.
Napoleon had paid some attention to the media as well,
This
especially
is a
in
new victory, my
the
brothers,
before
for the
telegraphs, and
entire
gave him
Islamic
great advantage
nation.
over his enemies. He
Victory,
was
my
on record
brothers,
for saying
marks a new
3
chapter
hostile
in the
newspapers
region's
are more
history.
to be
We have
feared than
avoided the
1,000
dangers of
bayonets.
leaving Syria as a playground
I
for
like that.
Iranian ambitions, spreading sectarianism and
I
corruption.
like that a lot.
The Assad family's home.
What's
the
wrong with
vast presidential
sectarianism?
palace,
Why do they
now a site for a sort
combine
of
sectarianism with
revolutionary tourism,
corruption?
an opportunity to reclaim some of the regime's ill-gotten
said what?
gains.
Oh, the leader right there when he was talking, he was saying he was putting sectarianism, saying that they're trying to stop Iran from bringing in sectarianism and corruption. Isn't sectarianism just secular government?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's actually a good
remains
thing.
and Assad is in hell.
But
and
he's
dust in
trying to do it
history.
for the Sunni
But for millions
Muslims.
of
So
Syria's displaced, it's their own
Oh
home
wait, no.
to
Oh, okay.
reclaim.
Secularism
So
or
often these roads
okay.
have
So
been
you said
clogged with those fleeing
sectarianism.
Now
yeah.
the polarity
Okay.
has
So
been
that
reversed,
is more
hopefully
about
buried
like
in a traffic jam.
like a theocratic approach, like
Still plenty of
involving
space for
religion
fear
and
of what's to
using
follow. Already there's been fighting between rival rebel
basically
groups in
like
the north,
either religious
the
or like
Turkish-backed
political
Syrian National Army taking the town of
belief as a
Manbij,
justification
and
for
the
violence,
US-backed and Kurdish-led
which is like
Syrian
literally no
democratic
different
forces.
from what the fuck
They're
they're doing.
trying to do, right?
And while
Yeah.
Kurds further east celebrate stunning gains over Assad and Iranian-backed forces, fears
Motherfuckers
here
just be
about the
shooting
potential
guns
for ISIS to
anywhere.
gain ground.
And
We'll
it's
also continue to maintain our presence.
sectarianism is also a very like region specific term, if I remember it correctly, because it's basically talking about like a lot of the fighting in a lot of the Arab Spring countries. Like you remember what I was talking about earlier, that the different revolutions that were taking place in the 2000s in different Arab countries.
Yeah.
Like that's where a lot of that shit started coming from, like a lot of the critique, and that's why that guy was using that language, because it was language that was being used by a lot of the protesters and a lot of the youth movements that were calling for an end to sectarianism and like secularism overall. So that's why he used that specific term, because he's trying to appeal to like a lot of the youth revolutionary movement, like, oh yeah, fucking that's right, Iran is like a super straight crazy like extremist. Let's not think about like the extremism in this group that they're responsible for. Let's think about the state sponsored shit.
Okay, that makes
Eastern
sense.
Syria, which is solely
Sorry, I
to
was trying to
ensure the enduring
think of like
defeat of
simplifying
ISIS
it,
and has nothing to do with other aspects of this conflict.
and not in a way that's like talking down either.
And rebel forces
Not
have
saying
entered
you're good.
Tartus,
No,
home
you're
to
good.
one of Russia's 2 Syrian naval bases. What now for Moscow's foothold on the Mediterranean? What now for the many regime loyalists here fearing reprisals? From the occupied Golan Heights, Israel's prime minister claiming credit for events in Syria.
Binoculars.
The result, he says,
Sitting
of
there with
blows dealt to
binoculars.
Hezbollah and Iran. Israel sending forces into the UN buffer zone.
War
Look at
theater,
them.
baby.
Yeah, they're just giving them
Syrians
a
know
front
all
row
too
seat.
well
That's
the
so
perils of
crazy.
this moment, but across
You want to know though? You want to know something cool? That's not something new. This is from 2014. Israelis gather on hillsides to watch and cheer as military drops bombs on Gaza. This is something that they've been doing for a very, very long time. Look at that. They bring drinks, snacks,
That is wild to me.
got a little couch and shit. So yeah, this is something that they've been doing for a long time.
Who the fuck
Long
does
time.
that?
They love
Like,
doing that. Fucking
don't
sickos. You know who does that? Zionists. I don't give a fuck if I get banned from Twitch for saying that, but no, Zionists do that.
for real though, like you don't see no I mean, I'm pretty sure we probably would if we could, but
Americans,
we
yeah,
don't.
I wouldn't say that. I
But
wouldn't
we
say that.
don't though. We don't sit here and watch from the sidelines at like Afghanistan being
Okay,
bombed
so we
like
don't
in
watch
real
from a
life.
hilltop. We don't watch from a hilltop, but we watch from YouTube and live leaks.
But that
So
gives
like,
us the sense of separation because we're watching it through a screen. These
yeah,
motherfuckers are
it gives
sitting
us.
on a mountain watching that in real life. That would be like me sitting at the fucking cliff right here of my mountain watching San Bernardino get bombed by China. That would be insane to me.
Well, I mean, it's insane to just want to watch that.
Yeah.
So again, there is no justification whether you watch it through YouTube or live leaks or in person. It's the same fucking thing. You just and I'm not saying you as in
Right.
specifically you, but when people make that argument, like that's just you trying to basically justify it and make yourself feel better about it. Because ultimately, like you're no different.
Right. But it feels like it's a little bit different because you're watching it through a screen, so it feels like it has that degree of separation, like you're watching it through an angle, you're not seeing the whole thing. Like, I couldn't it's hard for me to imagine being able to see that in person.
Yeah, it's just I don't know for me in this specific instance, right? Like using this, if I watch something, uh, whether it be or like read something like that article, it's because I want it to have that reaction, right? Like
Right.
to have that response. Like you can't just the separation, like because ultimately if you're like, yeah, like it separates me, it's because at that point it's like, oh, I'm just fucking viewing it to view it. As to where like, no, I'm viewing it because I'm looking at it and analyzing it from a humanitarian perspective. And that's fucking horrible. And that shit's bad. And I don't like it. Right?
Right.
So I don't want to feel separated from it because that's the whole entire point. That's why the maneuvering of the way that media works needs to definitely be examined a lot more. And I'm sure it has been, but like there needs to be more publications just about how at one point in time it used to be where if you showed something on video, if you showed people the horrors and atrocities being committed, it would change their mind. It would make them do stuff. That's why the fucking Vietnam War was so captivating and one of the biggest like talking points for a lot of like anti-military movements because it was the first time that you could sit in your home and see a video of some kid from the Midwest with his leg blown off,
Mhm.
right? And even though in the media's mind, oh well, even though that may be too hard to watch, there's at least separation from it. They're not there seeing it physically; they're seeing it through a TV screen, so that's fine. No, people saw it and they said, "Holy shit, that's fucking insane! That's crazy. We should not be allowing this to happen. Why is
Mhm.
this happening?" Right? And that's the whole point. To where now you fast forward, we will show you on video a police choke somebody out to death. We will show you on video police shoot somebody unarmed 90 times and get acquitted. And not just get acquitted, but get a fucking book deal and get paid to speak at different college campuses and on Fox News and shit.
Mhm. I mean, I think that's what the media has always tried to do though, is be able I mean, I could see the blame in that too, but also like you can't blame 'cause I see how it is, like, I can't watch the I mean, obviously, if I see this kinda stuff, it makes me feel like I'm just there, but I'm through those people's perspective of the degree of separation, I could see how, media or watching things on TV, just the invention of a screen itself has done a degree of separation on the human mind. It's kind of like as a good example for like me and you would be like a kangaroo. Like we've seen a kangaroo on TV, we've seen a kangaroo on screen, but seeing a kangaroo in real life is a completely different experience. Like you're actually there with the kangaroo. So like using that as an example of, you know, watching this stuff on TV happening through a scope and then seeing that there's people on a cliff top or on a mountaintop watching that stuff actually happen in real life and how shocking that could be to somebody because of the screen keeping it at that degree of separation.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like it's not like it's a fucking fictional story. Like, this is real
Mhm.
life. Like, I could
Mhm.
understand being able to be like, oh, well, like, there's a separation because this is a movie, right? Like, this,
Most
I'm
yeah.
able to separate myself from John Wick when he shoots people in the head 5 times because
Mm,
that's a movie. It's fiction. You
mhm.
know, I can separate myself. It's coming from a screen. So that's easier to digest, but that's nowhere in comparison to like watching literal people getting fucking bombed.
Yeah, I know.
Like there is no justification for that.
No, and I'm right there with you. I absolutely agree. I just know or see people how they perceive it through that way.
Yeah, well, those people need to know that they're fucking gross and they're wrong
Across the country, they're choosing to focus on its potential.
because they are.
Yeah, yeah.
Nowhere more so than here in Damascus, and a young couple
Most of them will never
experiencing the
even see like all the
revolutionary
videos
version
from
of a
Gaza
shotgun
where
wedding.
you see like a baby's skull and shit like that. They'll never see that
It's
stuff.
the most beautiful moment
It's
of our
not in their
lives.
recommendation
And because we
feeds.
won't experience this joy.
So I just want to say really quick, ask yourself this, because you hear guns and shit going on in the background.
Yeah.
Why are they showing this? And I'm going to ask the
Right.
class a question. I'm just kidding. I'm just going to ask you guys a question. When you see this image, knowing the context of what's going on, what does this tell you?
That they were gonna get married that day anyway, and it just so happened to be on a day that this is happening.
No, I doubt they're even going to get married. You know what this tells me? If you're an American, just regular average Joe, you see this and you hear leftists who are telling you what's happening in Syria is horrible. It's terrifying. It's horrendous. Leftists are saying that, obviously, whether it be on Twitter, whether it be on Facebook, whether it be to friends, whatever, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Two normies. Normies turn on CNN or BBC or Fox News or whatever, and they're going to see this. They're going to see people chilling out in parking lots, riding their bikes, getting married, smiling, white presenting dude. Just your average guy. They're laughing, they're smiling. Obviously, leftists, once again, are just blowing things out of proportion. They're just full of shit. It's not really that bad. Maybe the media is right. Maybe they're not lying. Because these people look happy. And if they're happy, if the people are happy about Assad being gone, then obviously things are going to be great. That's why they're showing this.
Oh, okay. Thank you for the follow. Vaccines don't work.
The vaccine doesn't work. Well, the vaccine does work, and it did work. And you want to know something else about the vaccine? Trump is responsible for it. He's the whole reason it was made. If you don't believe me, you can look it up. I mean, he used to take credit for it. He's the one that fucking spent all that government money on research. He's the one who gave Dr. Fauci, Killer Fauci, all that money.
Mhm.
Sorry, I just wanted to get him going. I'm looking forward to seeing what they type in chat.
I see that.
Twice. I decided my wedding would be today, on 8/12/2024.
Oh, he decided today they're going to get
A date
married.
we'll remember. It's an unforgettable day we'll teach our children about.
Just
Yo, I just want to,
Ah.
like, part of me wants to bookmark this because I want to see Channel 4 get in touch with this dude. Like 2 years from now. Not even 2 years, a year from now.
what will this day come to signify? A question
That's what I'm
perhaps
interested
for
in.
Syria's as yet unborn
I was wondering why
generation.
her smile looked so weird.
Harry Fawcett reporting. Well, ruling Syria was a family business for the Assads that began in 1971. Here, Edward Heath was prime minister at the time.
Okay, we have a video that is a little bit about how Assad got to there, so I think we can kind of like skip the rest of this part
Mm-hmm.
because it's gonna be talking about the Pass will go ahead. Speak of the devil.
There was hope for political change
The
in
history
Syria
of
when Bashar al-Assad
Bashar
inherited.
al-Assad. And this is a fun fact about him. He didn't want this. He didn't want to be the leader. He wasn't supposed to be the leader. That's what's crazy.
Right. Right. Reporter in
Reporter in
2027. Turns out this groom had been a CIA asset since at least 2016. You look at your follow.
Alex Jones was right. Oh man, dude, why
What's
are
happening
those
right
things
now?
too similar? They're
What's
so similar. It's
what's
almost like it was
happening
made
right
by the
now?
same person. So
My
weird.
question is
Power in
Rick around? Is it Rick? Rick, are you trolling with your weird names? That's what I want to
2000
know.
after the death of his father Hafiz. But apart from some economic reforms, he differed little from his father.
Was Alex Jones right about Occupy Wall Street? He was right about a couple things, yeah. A lot of stuff afterwards, though. Not so much. By the way, if Alex Jones is right, how come he's paying all that money? How come he's crying on video all the time about all his money being taken?
Mhm. Why does the Onion own his company?
Yeah. How come the Onion owns InfoWars now? You know what? It's cool because at the end of the day, Alex Jones can go see his kids. Oh, wait.
Father's 30-year tough rule. The young
Jesus.
Assad wasn't originally meant to take power. He was studying to become an eye doctor in London when he was recalled after the death of his older brother Basil. Parliament had to lower the age for presidential candidates from 40 to 34 so that he could be eligible for office. A decade later, he faced his first
Hey, the guy that we've been telling you is going to lead, he died, so guess what? His brother's going to take over.
real challenge. In March 2011, people took to the streets demanding democracy. The president dismissed the rebellion and called it a foreign conspiracy. Assad was also the head.
And that's one of many reasons why I say it's important to understand that you can't just say things like America bad. You can't just say things like Syria bad. There are a lot of fucking levels to this shit. And again, yes, America bad. Imperialism bad. However, even with that, like, Assad wasn't a great guy. The way he took over power was a way that I don't agree with. I don't fuck with nepotism.
Right.
I don't fuck with people using the military on their own people to maintain order. That's
Right.
fascism. I don't fuck with fascists.
Of the only legal party in Syria, the Ba'ath.
Dude literally used the
Commander-in-Chief
state
of
to
the
punish
armed
people.
forces. His response was a heavy crackdown on protesters,
Yo, I
which
just
brought
got
even
another
more
follow
Syrians
from
to the streets,
unvaccinated
eventually
subhuman.
triggering a civil war.
I'm not sure what's going
Assad
on,
did
but
have some
I have a
public
bad
support,
feeling.
8 followed.
particularly
Let's
from the
go.
minority Alawites, a sect which his family is part of. But the Syrian leader repeatedly dismissed his opponents, calling them terrorists.
What we are facing is not a political problem, it's a conspiracy and terrorism. The political reform process continues to move forward, yet
And also keep in mind too, like what the South Korean president was saying, right? Like when people were saying, "Hey, we don't really like the way that you're ruling. We kind of want to vote for somebody else." Remember how he was like, "Oh man, that's just North Korea infiltration. That's just corruption. That's just
terrorism
people
is
trying to
not going
fucking
down.
That's just foreign
As the war
interference."
dragged on, it was the backing of allies Russia and Iran which provided political and military support that allowed Assad to recapture territory and hold on to power. But his government was unable to regain legitimacy in the eyes of much of the international community. In the shadow of war, he held elections in government-controlled territories that were dismissed by many as undemocratic. And despite never winning the war, he survived, but with a narrow support base and with only partial control of the country. The Syrian leader was always uncompromising and defiant, and ignored a UN-led political process to bring about a democratic transition. once seen as
Well, I mean, I wonder why he didn't want to fucking work with the UN for a power transition, because how well has that ever fucking worked for anybody else that's ever done it?
a reformist.
You know what I mean?
Stands
Like,
accused of using chemical weapons against his own people.
No.
and that
Trucker,
part right there.
look, can I just please, whoever this person is that keeps making accounts and following me, can you just please stop? I'm not.
So Jimmy, I'm just gonna let you know the best thing to do is ignore it. If anything, turn off your notifications, because trolls, the moment you start saying or showing that it bothers you, they'll just keep doing it, and they're just
I
gonna do
just
it
don't know
anyways.
if it's Rick or if it's other people that I know that do this, or if it is a troll. Like, I don't know if it's my friends, because I have friends
Well,
that do this.
just ignore it.
Okay.
His
Wait for them to say something.
government
Okay.
was responsible for killing and imprisoning thousands, displacing millions, and for starving those who lived in besieged areas controlled by the rebels.
For Syrians, he will always be remembered as the president who exhibited very poor leadership. He's the one actually who destroyed his country, displaced his own people, and he's not only lost his rule, but he lost an entire homeland.
In elections in 2021, Assad won 7 more years
Yo, why has his wife got the Karen bob
in power. In 2023, after more than 12 years of conflict, Assad was welcomed back into the Arab League by the same Arab states that once shunned him. But the situation on the ground remained the same. Syrians who were hoping for a new beginning were still living in economic collapse and a humanitarian crisis. And in late 2024, the long stagnant war came roaring back, with the rapid advance of opposition fighters, who quickly took control of several major cities at a time when Assad's allies were busy with their own conflicts elsewhere. But Bashar al-Assad leaves the country in ruins, and millions of Syrians wondering, what's next for this ancient nation?
Well, if we have any historical context, what happened to Libya is what's going to happen. Here's another video, and this is something that they showed a little bit from I think it was like the last video or the one before it. Old Netanyahu on the bridge overlooking.
This is a historic day for the Middle East. The collapse of the Assad regime, the tyranny in Damascus offers.
Look at that shit-eating grin on that
I
motherfucker. What
know.
a fucking piece of shit.
I can't tell if he dyes his hair or if he uses the purple shampoo, because his hair is too purple to be like old man white.
Did the crisis have anything to do with the U.S. stealing 91% of the nation's daily oil output for over half a decade? Yeah. I mean, I wonder if that has anything to do with it at all. And that's another thing that Western propaganda loves to do. They love to strip resources from a country, and then when that country doesn't have resources to generate revenue or like any sort of income, they're like, "Oh, hey, look how fucking stupid and poor they are.
Oh.
They're communists. Look at what communism did for them. Don't ask what we were doing there for like 50 fucking years." But you're like, yeah, dude.
Offers great opportunity, but also is fraught with significant dangers. This collapse is a direct result of our forceful action against Hezbollah.
Is it direct? Hold on, let me bring that back real quick, This collapse is a direct result of our forceful action. This dude straight up said mask off. Full fucking mask off.
Of
Wow.
our forceful action against Hezbollah and Iran, Assad's main supporters. It set off a chain reaction of all those who want to free themselves from this tyranny and its oppression. But it also means we have to take action against possible threats. One of them is the collapse of the Separation of Forces Agreement from 1974 between Israel and Syria. This agreement held for 50 years. Last night it collapsed. The Syrian army abandoned its positions. We gave the Israeli army the order to take over these positions to ensure that no hostile force embeds itself right next to the border of Israel. This is a temporary defensive position until a suitable arrangement is found. Equally, we send a hand of peace to all those beyond our border in Syria, to the Druze, to the Kurds, to the Christians, and to the Muslims who want to live in peace with Israel. We're going to follow events very carefully. If we can establish neighborly relations and a peaceful relations with the new forces emerging in Syria, that's our desire. But if we do not, we'll do whatever it takes to defend the state of Israel.
They'll do whatever it
and the
takes.
border of Israel.
Well, that's good to know. That is good.
This is a
That's
live
disgusting.
Isn't great.
No, how? I don't understand how he's able to get away with all of this.
Cause Jimmy, it's the game. Thoughts
He's just-
redacted. Thoughts redacted. Redacted. No, 100%. I can't even say exactly what I think of Benjamin Netanyahu. I can't say that on Twitch, but I will just
TOS
say
thoughts.
that he is a stinky doo head, and I
wish I could slap that shit-eating grin off of his fucking face. Like,
yeah.
take it, let's go outside. Like, let 1v1 me out on the fucking streets, please. Let me 1v1 him.
Minecraft.
Just one time. Like, catch me outside, motherfucker. I hate him.
Catch me outside. How about that?
And we have a new regime starting to take shape.
To all my buddies who thought Craig Murray was out of the
primarily
game after Julian Assange got freed, he's fucking back,
which is being
bitches!
hilariously presented in the West as democratic and reformist when it is anything but, and which was financed and organized by Turkey, the United States, Israel, and the Gulf states, none of which has lifted a finger to help the Palestinians, and in fact, the bulk of which, of course, is the coalition which is actually committing the genocide of the Palestinians. So that's what's happening today, and I want you to not be in any doubt about what is happening and why it is happening. And it has nothing to do with democracy, nothing to do with human rights. It's all to do with Greater Israel and the genocide of the Palestinians.
No.
Yep. And that's literally what this is all about. It's just land grabs at this point. They're trying to redefine land possession because we're in the fucking late stages. You know what I mean? Like, this is it.
Yep.
This is all, folks. And that pretty much kind of wraps up today.
Hell yeah.
I know it's a little bit of a shorter stream than usual. Tomorrow we are going to be talking about that Trump interview. We're going to be talking about a couple of the Trump cabinet picks, some of the situations that have happened with that. We're going to be talking about Coups Patel in particular because he has a lot of interesting ties alongside with QAnon and the whole conspiratorial side of the Trumpism. So that's going to be a really fun one. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait.
Hell yeah.
So if you guys enjoyed today, make sure you come back tomorrow because tomorrow we're going to be having some fun too.
Hell yeah. I think that's going to be a blast.
Is there anything that you wanted to quickly promo or add in before we take off?
This Tuesday, don't forget me and Willie's show, Braglands. We will be back in action.
Hell yeah. And then on my end, yeah, we're going to be doing an episode tomorrow. My brother's going to be hopping in.
Hell yeah.
Talking a little bit about it because he was able to get some really good stuffs that I'd like to talk about. And plus, just to be honest, I kind of want to pick his brain a little bit about some QAnon stuff. And maybe you guys in chat have some stuff you'd like to bring up, or maybe some questions, or maybe some, just topics that you want to talk about specifically having to do with QAnon or the conspiratorial side of politics. I think it's going to be a fun episode tomorrow. I enjoyed this one too. Not so much what happened, but just overall, just get on here, talk with you guys, and try to make some sense of everything going on.
Yeah, definitely a good place to be able to rant and get it out of our system so it's not just bottled up all the time. Feels like you're making a little bit of a change.
Well, and if anything, like, we're just people fucking talking and chatting it up at the end of the day, right? It's there's not much power that we do have right now. Not much power that we can take that will be sustainable.
No.
Um, but action is going to be needed. And before that happens, people need to know just exactly what the fuck we're going against.
I agree.
Because a lot of people still don't really know who's on what side. So keep that in mind. Rivethead, boo, I know we're ending. I'm sorry. But
I'm
it's getting late.
sorry.
It's getting late. And honestly, I'm gonna keep it also a buck. Since we streamed 2 hours, which is kind of what I was hoping for. Like we're right on the money. We got our 2 hours in. I kind of want to play some video games before I go to bed. Marvel Rivals is calling me.
Yep.
It's been calling me all day.
Yep. Well, I think
So
I
I'm excited.
actually I think I'm gonna keep it streaming and just switch over to the gaming. So Rivethead's on mine if he just wants to chill and hang out and watch
Oh,
some
see, there you
gaming.
go. There
Yeah.
you fucking go.
There we
All
go.
right. On that note, I'm ending on my end. To the little fucking hate follows that came in, I appreciate you. Thanks for the free follows.
For
I guess.
real.
You're gonna get banned and removed from the follow list. Shout out to Commander Groot. But yeah, until next
Yeah.
time, everybody, love, peace, chicken grease. Appreciate all the lurkers. Appreciate all the chatters.
Hell
You guys
yeah.
have a good one. See you tomorrow.
Stay high, free Palestine. Y'all, on my end, I will end the stream. That way I can download this easily and I don't have to download like 6 hours of streaming politics and then gameplay and then have to cut it in half because I'm taking all the politics stuff and putting it onto the YouTube channel. So Rivethead, stick around, give me like 2 seconds. I'm just gonna change the name or the title of the video, what it's gonna be about on gaming, and then I will be right back on. So don't go anywhere.